Hey guys, welcome to our Josh and Dewey podcast. This is our Sunday after corner, and we're gonna talk about today boundaries in the Christian context. My name is Josh.
And my name is Dewey.
All right, so let's get started. Dewey, so what do you think are some clear boundaries that should not be passed in a relationship?
Well, I think personally for me, because this is like very Christian based, I guess, and as a young adult, I think it's in human nature to make mistakes and not know right away what your specific, whether it's boundaries or your purpose in life or anything like that. So personally, I'm still looking for my boundaries because, just in past relationships, you get curious, like what's considered too far. And I'm the type of person to where I'm not going to learn unless it's through my own mistakes. So it's like, it's like touching like a hot stove. Like, people can tell me it's really hot, but I'm not going to know until I do it myself. So, it's kind of bad that I do take that approach. And it's definitely something I don't want to do in the future. But, just naturally, I think as a human with emotions, like that's just what happens to me. And right now, I don't know if I specifically know my boundaries right now. But, could you maybe tell me your boundaries? That way I can maybe I can create mine right now.
Well, I have a question. Like, what are your guys' thoughts on, like, PDA in the church? PDA is in public display of affection.
Yeah. Well, when I say I don't, actually, before I move on, before I say I don't know my boundaries, definitely I believe in no sex before marriage. So, that's like a definite boundary because, that is biblical. And so, yeah, just going off, what was it again? PDA?
Yeah, like how much can you be doing when you're courting?
At church?
At church or just any public setting?
Public setting?
I think, well, both, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it kind of applies to both.
I think it's relative to the situation that you are in, because I think I've noticed that not all churches are the same, obviously, because the church is not just the building, but it's the body of believers. So, like, I think a lot of times different regions, because I'm guessing we're just talking about U.S. churches for now, like Eastern and Western churches tend to be more liberal in a way, like New York churches and like California churches versus kind of like Texas Southern churches that are kind of like in the Bible Belt. Because even talking to some of the people at our church that are from outside of Texas, from like the Eastern and Western states, they're always kind of surprised by the lack of physical kind of intimacy among brothers and sisters in Christ. And I feel like in dating that kind of translates. So for our church, I've noticed that we tend to very diversify. Not diversify, but kind of like
Gender
segregate.
segregation.
Yeah, the male and the female.
No purple.
Like I don't think there's nothing wrong with that, but I think I see the merit in it. Mm-hmm. But I feel like for our southern kind of area of the churches that we are in, the context and the culture, we push a lot of like no physical intimacy in public, kind of, people are uncomfortable with like hugging, right? I always just give high five because I don't know if I don't want to send off any wrong signals or anything. So I think
side hug at most.
Yeah, exactly.
Side hug.
So I think a lot of times it depends really on the region of the like it depends on the church and the region that you are in. So
what about you personally?
Yeah.
Personally, for me, like I've noticed that even in my past relationships that I really don't like PDA. Like even
Get your hands off
get your hands off me, woman. No, but like with the eyes of God, no. But no, for real, like I think for me, I'm uncomfortable. Not that there's nothing wrong with it, but I'm just personally uncomfortable with showing like displays of affection in public because I just feel like we're unnecessarily bringing attention to ourselves, and I'm trying to like, be like, everyone look at me and my girlfriend and look at our relationship, and like, there's nothing wrong with that, but I just don't. I'm the type to not try to draw too much attention to myself.
So do you just give high fives to your girl then?
Like even holding hands in public, I was kind of uncomfortable with it, and I kind of had to get used to it.
Yeah.
But like kissing in public, definitely no. Like I think I would never go out of my way to do that because I just feel like it's such a, like, bringing unnecessary attention to us.
Is it the being in public part? That's the
yeah,
problem?
I think so. Cause like Wait, not that in like private. I'm like, like a fiend or
Closet
something.
pervert.
Yeah, no, definitely I'm not like that.
Sucking face.
But no, I'm not really like that. But I think especially in public, like in private, like I'm okay with hugging or maybe like a kiss or something, but not like in public. I just don't feel comfortable, and that's just me. I don't think there's nothing
I
wrong
agree.
with
I
it.
think again, if we were to think, I think you have to. I think for both sides, you have to know what your limitations are. Like how much you can actually take without being tempted.
Right.
Like I think men again are more on the side where
Like we're
physical
visual
touch-
creatures.
Yeah, physical touch again is more. It tempts us more than I think it does for women. And because it comes off. Not knowing, I don't know what exactly, like what women are feeling, or like in that sense, or at least for temptation. But I think for men, you have to know how much you can take.
Right, and I think it's different for everyone.
And it's better to be. I think in your case, it's better to be safe than sorry.
Right, exactly. And I think I'm more on the conservative side to like not even put myself in the situation because I know my heart and I know me and I know that I do get tempted easily.
Yeah.
So like even actually like transitioning from that, like, dude, what do you think? Like, how do you handle the situation when you are tempted, or like, what do you think about that? Like, do you even like try not to put yourself in the first place, or like, do you try to maybe like, let's do it because I know myself and I know I can fight it? So I want to know what your perspective is because I don't think we ever really talked about that.
So you're asking me, do I know my limits?
Not even that, but I think what's your view on like tempting you? Not tempting yourself. That's kind of weird, but like as John mentioned, like it's about temptation, like PDA. Like, is it gonna lead to other things later, or like?
No, I mean I definitely agree that certain acts will lead to the next level, and it's like you said, like just knowing yourself of, will this lead to that, and can that potentially lead to this? Because obviously everything sort of, I guess, just trickles down to one another. It starts out with holding hands, but then, it goes to hugs, longer hugs.
Right.
And then, it can lead to cuddling. That could lead to, like, a kiss, making out, going further, sex. And, I definitely agree with that. I guess, like I said before, personally, I still don't know what is my limit and what will trigger what. Because I mean, obviously, I think I know to the point where it's like cuddling could lead to intense making out.
Yeah.
And then that could lead to, groping and
Other unnecessary.
And that's why I also
physical
feel like,
intimacy.
again, like Christian men, I think generally have less understanding of that. I think they don't. I think people who have been dating for a long time, they know their limits pretty well, just because they've been in it for so long. But I think for Christian men, like who are wanting to date for the first time, or wanting to date a girl in a new way, it's kind of hard to know where those boundaries are. You're like, oh, like I don't know what.
And I kind of agree with what you said earlier, John, when saying it's important to know your boundaries and then the girlfriend or boyfriend's boundaries, because if you do have that open communication with each other, then I feel like you're able to establish how far you can go with each other.
Actually, that's a good point because I think if you're only in the mindset of like what's my temptation, and like you don't even think about the girls, and it's like obviously she gets tempted too, and it can possibly lead to like if you're not openly communicating about communicating about that, the girl might be like, no, like, oh, why is Josh not holding my hand in public? Because we haven't talked about it. Like, and she might think like, does he not like me anymore?
Yeah.
So I feel like it can lead to miscommunication. So actually, I think that's a great point. Because I feel like maybe I don't think I've ever done that.
Yeah, it's kind of
I've
weird
only
to like
shared
bring that
about
up. Like,
my
what's your boundary?
Right.
This is my boundary.
Yeah.
Because I've only shared my boundary, and it's like I guess it was kind of selfish of me to expect her to respect that boundary, but I haven't heard of her boundary. Because it's not like girls don't get tempted too, because we're both sinful people.
Yeah.
Just because I'm a guy doesn't mean I'm more sinful. I might struggle with it more. But I think even what Dewey said, going earlier about what you said about you need to make the mistake and you learn it, I'm actually like the opposite. I like to hear from people's personal experience so I don't have to go through it. And then I try to apply it in like real world situations. Like, oh, so I shouldn't do that in this situation.
Yeah.
So even like what JP said in Porch a while back or a couple of weeks back, I really like the point of the fact that he said if like because one of the questions that they did for the ask a question and they answered a bunch of questions. One of the questions was like, how far is too far, right? And he said it's like there's no like clear cut boundary, you can't cross this, but it's as soon as your body is thinking about sex that you've gone too far. And now that I know that, it's like, oh, I didn't know that before. I wish I knew that before, so I wouldn't have. Maybe I've been better. I would have been better equipped to fight that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
now I know that I'm the type to like try to apply it and not so that I don't have to make the mistake that someone else has
But
made.
aren't you like kind of scared by you already setting your mindset to that, and then you constantly have, let's say you gave, because growing up it's like no sex, no sex, no sex since like elementary school. That's what we've been taught. Or maybe not elementary school, but middle school. That's what we've been taught, and that's like this kind of the stigma we have in our head. Like sex is bad. Sex is like we shouldn't do this. So don't you almost feel like giving yourself that restriction and boundary for such a long time, it'll almost like translate into your actual marriage life, and then you still kind of have
right,
that
like it's like
Yeah,
sex
negative
is
that
sex
negative
is
connotation.
vilified.
And I honestly think the main reason is because I think in the church we shut it out too much.
It's like
You know?
taboo.
Yeah,
Right.
like we don't even talk about it
Right.
to the point where, like, again, like how are you even gonna know? I think that's also why a lot of Christian males struggle with it so much, and I think there's a reason why there are a lot of Christian men that
And that's why
struggle with it.
we need to realize that like sex is not a bad thing, that it is like a God-given gift to make like marriage more
Yeah.
pleasurable, I guess. Like it's something that God has given, and we as simple people turn it into something that's evil, and that's why it's seen as bad thing, because we tend to struggle with this so much that it's kind of become unnecessarily vilified as like this is a bad thing. But God has given it as a gift so that two people can show that they love each other physically, and that's what God is, like God ordained, but we make it into a bad thing. Like for me, like I don't drink, but doesn't mean like it's not like I don't drink because I think beer or like alcohol is bad, but I don't drink because I just don't want to, and that's my personal I just don't want to. And there's nothing wrong. Yeah, there's no yeah, and there's nothing wrong with alcohol in and of itself, but
it's like, how do you know your boundary when you really haven't like tested yourself? That's the thing. I guess that's like my biggest concern.
so like I'm a firm believer in not even testing yourself in the first place, because like even in like the Bible you see like pictures of like don't even test yourself, like flee from youthful temptations, like Paul wrote in 2 Timothy, like flee from youthful lusts, like don't even try to fight it. Like Paul wasn't like test yourself and try to like guard yourself against it and like learn from it, but it was like don't even put yourself in the situation in the first place. And like I even think about the story of Joseph when he was in Potiphar's house and the wife was trying to like seduce him. Like it's not like he was like, oh no, we mustn't, and he's like, but I'm still holding on to it. But he was just like, he ran away as soon as she grabbed him, and it's like, for me, I think that's like a personal like, that should be like a picture of what we should follow, because, I mean, like knowing myself, maybe like, cause like I was going back, like I feel like it's relative to the person, and some people are more good at, or they're better at fighting temptation, but for me, I know that I'm super weak when it comes to lustful temptation, so I don't even want to test myself because I know I'm weak. But like Dewey, you might be stronger, who knows? Like I think you are better than me at fighting sexual temptation. Oh, not sexual, I guess sexual lustful temptations. So maybe you are better equipped to fight against it. But for me, I think I'm not. So I just try not even put myself in the first situation.
Well, I also think in the Bible, like the concept of dating does not really exist.
Yeah.
They just got married. That was it. Like that was
friendship, and then marriage.
if you basically had sex, you were married to her forever. Like that was it, And even dating is a modern thinking, right? And again, I also think like I think you are smart in that you should, if you know your limits, you shouldn't pass them. But how do you figure it out? I guess.
What about you personally?
Okay, like for me, the way I think it's just where it's coming from, like me in PDA and me in like public display of affection. I'm okay with showing it. I I show it.
And so how did you get to that point where you knew you're okay with that?
It's where it's coming from, because it's like it's more of a reaction than it is like, oh, I'm doing this because I want it for the sake of doing it, you know. Like I really want to like kiss her and I really want to make it. It's not really that. It's like, oh, like you're such a beautiful person. Like let me just give you this display of affection, you know. Again, like even like when we did love languages, like, you know, touch is a form of love language, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be in a seductive way, you know, like to show affection to people. That's why I say like, oh, like high fives, or maybe, you know, like that's I think that's a form of PDA. It's just not in the way seductive way that we're thinking, right?
And I just want to put a disclaimer now that I realize, like, hearing myself, I sound like a total, like, we can't even hold hands, we can't do anything because you're going to tempt me. But, like, I just want to put a disclaimer that I like to hold hands. And it's like kissing is not a bad thing. But I've noticed that as a trend that, like, I can do those things, but as soon as I go further, it tends to...
Yeah.
Okay,
that's
girls,
what it turns in.
You heard it.
You can hold his hand.
Josh available.
That's what it. Oh yeah, by the way, yes, me and Dewey and are single, for the ladies out there that are listening.
But not our sound technician, John.
John is unfortunately taken. But no, yeah, I just want to make the disclaimer that there's nothing wrong with like physical intimacy. It's just like it's not like I'm all up against it. It's just anything farther than single.
Turn off your phone, man.
Oh,
Sorry,
man.
Just
man.
put that on
Yeah,
silent.
I got important phone
We are
calls.
on a podcast.
Ladies be calling me. My mom is calling me.
People have already heard. They're like, oh.
Yeah, that was my mom. But no, but for real, like. So I think I just want to, I just want to say, there's nothing wrong with it. I know myself. It's just like there's nothing wrong with holding hands and kissing. I'll do that. It's just as soon as I go farther, I tend to,
So I think,
sin, I guess.
yeah. So I think we all kind of have a sense of like our public display of affection. But what about like personally, like how far, like Josh, how far would you go with your girlfriend not in public?
Can I answer that?
Well, okay. Again, it
Is that
goes
too
back
far?
to what I said before. It's like it should be a reaction of.
Yeah.
Again, like the only reason I do it in a public is so that I'm not tempting my friends or like they're not thinking something.
Because shouldn't
that
your
could damage their
boundaries?
relationship.
Because shouldn't your boundaries publicly almost be similar privately?
Yeah.
Well, it should be, but again, I think that it's when you're married. I think at that
Yeah.
stage, it can be very open,
But I feel like there's no boundaries in marriage almost.
Because again, people know you're married and stuff. But when you're dating, again, like in the church, like people will question and ask, right? They will be curious. They won't know. Again, like they're not gonna know your boundaries as well as, they're gonna project their own fears and their own thoughts into it, and then that's also why like. There's a different role for it. I think if you know somebody that in the church that is in a relationship, you have to take a different role on it. And I think some people are really aggressive about it, and some people are not as aggressive. But yeah, and again, I do things out of a reaction of like and of course like if I'm already thinking like, oh, this is a lustful thing, like I'm doing this because, oh my god, like I'm having like lustful temptation. Then that's like already wrong, right? And I think what you said before is like if you're already thinking about sex, or that's probably you've already gone too far, right?
Yeah.
For me, it's just like a reaction. It's just like, oh, I just want to like, hey, like I really like being here. Let's just hold hands, It's fine,
I think for me, if it were to ask me like what would be the I guess like my boundary in private, I think. I would like, because I really want to have the mindset that whoever I'm dating is a sister in Christ and is a daughter of God, and then God has given me special provision to take care of one of his daughters. And like, would I do anything to her that God would not approve as a father? So I think like holding hands is fine, like kissing is fine too, but I think for me, I guess anything farther than that, and if I'm feeling guilty or convicted after that, obviously it's wrong. So I think I try to see her as like, really trying to see her, and it's hard. It's easier said than done. But trying to see her as like a daughter of God of God first, and a sister in Christ first. That really helps me to put in perspective of her as a girl and like, the things that we can do as a couple.
And that's the
how,
thing.
How we can show intimacy.
And that's the thing. It's not like you're never going to be able to, assuming you're dating with intentions for like marriage and stuff like that, it's not like you're never going to be able to go past these boundaries,
Right.
because if you do marry this special person, it's like then you will be able to take that next step.
Because these boundaries are set so that you can
Exactly.
enjoy marriage.
Yeah.
And I think even talking about that's why and I agree when people say dating shouldn't be too long, because not as a special, like the primary reason, but I think that's one of the reasons why I agree when people say that you shouldn't date too long, because if you have the intention of dating to marry, then why prolong it unnecessarily and put yourself as a couple in temptation to,
Yeah.
Damn,
disobey God.
Was that shots fired at John?
Well,
That
they-
was not,
for me-
but it
He's
might
been
have
dating
been.
for 6
Yeah.
years.
It's been 6 years.
I don't know. Was it
Well,
6?
we've
How long has it been?
been knowing each other for a long time, but it's really only been for 2 years.
Oh yeah. So like I wouldn't people say encourage you shouldn't date more than like couple years. No, not even like 2
Yeah, I was just
years.
messing with you.
So John, start getting
Yeah.
start preparing for that ring and the rock.
So
'cause-
this is why, again, like for me, I think when I started to date, I built it on wrong foundation, right? And
Right.
a lot of this stuff, again, like where I am right now with my relationship with Sirwan, is that we are trying to build a more Christian relationship. We're trying to build a more holy relationship. And
Yeah.
again, part of that is sort of backtracking. It's sort of like looking back and like kind of like, okay, like let's
Like
look at our
dating again.
boundaries again. Yeah, like let's look at our boundaries again and let's do this right, And it literally took me to be kind of the first one to kind of like ease it back and help her understand. And I think she's understanding of the test. She knows why. She thinks she agrees. She agrees with me. So that's also why we've been kind of waiting, because again, we have to kind of unravel this back, right? And I think for most people they would just break up and stuff. But I think in our case, being in long distance, we've kind of realized, like we want to be with each other and we want to make this work. So let's do this right. And and again, like going back to what you said, I think it took me to understand that like I love Sirwan. But I love
L-O-V.
yeah. I love Sirwan.
It's
but
official.
It's also understanding that God loves Sirwan first, my girlfriend
Right.
first, right? And that gives me a very humble form of my love, because I understand the order of things, right? I understand that there were people before me that have loved her more and greater, and that means there's limitations to my own love. And there are limitations to what I can do for her, and I think that's given me a very humble approach to sort of how I treat her.
That's deep.
But again,
Compelling.
like that's a very recent thing. I think that I've realized that in the past like couple of months, just kind of by studying it, and then like me and talking with her and figuring it out. So when people have asked me why I haven't married yet, this is the reason.
She's not here.
We're trying to again, being a long distance takes time to unravel these things because we can't talk as much. So we're doing it, and we're doing it at our pace. It's really because, again, like I want to have the right foundation moving into it, not so much about because we built it on a different foundation, not so much like a wrong foundation, just a different foundation with lack of understanding.
Right.
That now that I understand, like how do we do this in a way that we can? Yeah. So.
No, I think that makes sense. So you're wrong, Josh. I'm just
You don't
kidding.
know me. You don't know anything.
Yeah, I think John was pretty much agreeing with what you were saying, because
Yeah.
they sort of did backtrack, and now it's like they are kind of like renewing their.
And I just
dating
want to
experience.
say that like I'm not a perfect person that has everything
Yeah,
figured
yeah.
out. So like like if you listen to this, like oh my god, Josh is like
If Josh
Just
said
give
it. This must be right.
he's like
I'll
the best boyfriend ever. Like I admit that I made my mistakes as in the past, but like as even John said, it like you learn from the mistakes and I'm not to like make an excuse that God used it as a way to shape me and for the future wife, I guess hopefully. It's that like we learn from these mistakes, and we obviously we don't want to make these mistakes, but unfortunately it has happened.
Yeah.
But like God is a God of redeemer. God is a God who redeems, and he uses those broken and past not sinful, but like mistakes that I made to prepare my heart for the future relationship. So I just want to, like say like, like it's not like we got all figured out. It's like next,
I know.
my next relationship's gonna be like amazing, and we're gonna be glorifying God in whatever that.
And
we
they
do.
only gonna hold hands.
and they all want to go on a whole hands, right? But it's not gonna be like that. I'm gonna make mistakes.
And that's
naturally.
why I feel like again, like what took this is like again, like to backtrack is kind of hard, just emotionally, because again, like you feel like you have to go back emotionally.
And generally, it's like it's amazing that both of y'all agreed to backtrack. 'Cause usually that's not the case, and that's why
And that's why
the
again,
relationship will
like
end.
you need an objective view on it, not such an emotionally based, and I think when you go into it very emotionally based, again, the longer you wait on it, it's very hard to kind of like do that. Especially, it was hard for us to kind of be like, okay, like let's we can't do let's stop this, right? Because and help us both understand it, right? Because I didn't know much about the proper way of courting until being in this relationship for the like and figuring it out, like, oh shoot, I've done something wrong. I need to correct this, right? I want to fix this, right? And let's go back. And if she's not on board with it, that means, you know what? That means you and I are not on this right page, right?
And now that we're talking about, I guess, even like courting and dating, I think like it's been a while, but I feel like we should talk about why we don't just date, but we actually date / court to marry, right? Like we should clarify. Like, dude, did you want to explain to the people like the difference between just dating to date and why we should, and it's encouraged that we should date to marry?
So we're going on a whole new topic right now.
Well, like, I think it's just like it's needed to clarify, not to just because I feel like we can't just assume that people
the
are
difference between dating and
like
courting.
people who are listening to this is like, oh, like they think about dating to marry, like, or some people might be like, oh, what's dating to, like, you know, what is there even a difference in dating to date and dating to marry?
So I guess dating is more of a secular practice in a sense, where I think John said it best before we started this pod. It's very like each couple's being very possessive of one another, especially in the relationship, and it's a little bit selfish in the end because, you know, they're basing everything on emotions and, you know,
like
just
what can she do for me?
Yeah, what can she do for me? Feeding off of that, and then courting is more of a sense of, well, dating can lead to marriage, obviously, but courting in a sense is more intentional based. You know, it's for marriage, and not ultimately it's not just dating, but it's kind of edifying that person, allowing them to grow as a brother or sister in Christ. So it's technically, when y'all do, let's say you'll end the courtship, it should end on a positive note because y'all both grew together as brothers and sisters of Christ.
I say it's anything courting, like dating, is anything that does not have any form of spiritual growth.
Yeah. And that's why we set boundaries, because in order to not mix up dating and courting.
Because I even heard that people have this misconception that if a courtship doesn't lead to marriage, it's considered a failure. But it's actually not, because it's considered a success because you guys figured out that it's not gonna lead to marriage, and y'all should have been ended and happy, you know. So even talking about if those who are listening are maybe not Christian, like why we believe that we shouldn't have sex before marriage is just like to put it simply, like God has ordained it, and He wants, as a good father, that He wants His children to be able to enjoy the things that He's given, and He knows, like Father knows best in a way, that like God has commanded us to not have extramarital sexual intercourse before marrying. So I just wanted to clarify for those who are listening, like and all of us believe in no sex before marriage because that's something God has commanded, and He knows.
Yeah,
that's
and
what's best
there
for
is
us.
a lot of stigma, I think, on just Christian dating, and I think even in the outside of the church, like the pagan perspective, is that like the Christian dating is kind of this like prude, like you're not allowed to do all this stuff, and that's really all what it's about. But what I found it's actually way more supportive than you think. I think you're actually doing a lot more things, but just you're doing things in different areas. You know, you want to help this person do glorify God in their way, and same that person also doing it for that. Again, naturally it becomes less possessive. You know, you don't want to own this person. You want this person to be the best person this person can be, and that person also feels the same way for you, and you both know that, right?
That's true.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, just to go back to boundaries. So.
Oh yeah. I'm just kidding.
I was gonna ask this question earlier, but what's like the right approach in, let's say, the couple, the guy and the girl, their boundaries are just completely off of like where they see eye to eye. So it's like, let's say her boundary is, what's like the smallest thing they can do? Hold hands. I think it's the smallest form of PDA. And then the guy's is everything before sex. So obviously, obviously there's an extreme difference as opposed to like just hugging and holding hands.
Right.
So what's like the best approach on either like resolving that? Because obviously those are two extremes, and do you just meet at the halfway point, or is this something where it seems like it's just gonna lead to failure because they have such different values in that sense?
I think for
You have
for
to
me,
talk about it, I think.
if that were ever to happen to me, and hopefully not, I think if that would happen to me, and not to say like, oh, like this is what Holy Josh would do. Well, I think if that were to ever happen to me, I think I would respect her boundaries and say that, you know what, like if you think holding hands should be the farthest we go, then we should only hold hands, because even talking about relationships, it's not about what she can do for me, but it's to be ultimately about what I can do for her. And if respecting her boundary more than mine and expecting her to conform to my boundaries is what's gonna respect her, and that's how I show my love for her, then I think I should respect her boundaries and say that, you know what, like fine, we can just hold hands, and that's totally fine, because she still knows that even if we're just holding hands and our love language might be different on the level of intimacy, like if my love language and how I show is kissing, but her love language is just holding hands, then she still knows that even if I just hold her hands like that, you know, she knows that I'm showing my affection for her, right? So I think in that way, that's what I would do. Obviously, it'd be hard, and I'll probably push it sometimes.
Yeah.
But if I truly wanted to respect her and show my respect for her that way, then I think that's the way I should.
And again, like if you're thinking about her, like you should understand why it's important for her, right? But also, I think for him, he should also understand like why it should be important for him too, right? He should also agree, like know why he's doing that, not just for her sake, but also why. And again, like if he feels very discontent with it, and he's like, I can't do this, then
maybe he needs to check his own heart.
Yeah, that just
Why do we assume the guy has the bigger boundary in this case?
You said that's the girl and the guy. That was the example you gave us,
circumstance.
Dewey.
Yeah. Again, like if that happens, then you already know, like, hey, you're not supposed to, that again, if that's your thinking and this is my thinking, I'm sorry, right? I don't believe, like, if it's that important to somebody, like you shouldn't change it, you know, like changing that is not something, you know.
Dude, you can hear the text you sent, dude. Oh. It's pretty loud, man. Why don't you silence your phone, dude? I'm ignoring calls from my mom for the sake of this podcast.
All right, I'll stop too.
She's probably very sick where Josh is.
On this conversation.
Was it really you on the other line?
Oh my gosh.
So,
all right,
Josh, what forms of
you want to see my call log? I'm going to show you my call log right now. Oh my gosh. Everyone is dad, sister, or mom. And that's most of the calls in Dewey. No, but for real, yeah, I think that was a great question. What do you think about it then? Because we haven't heard your perspective.
No, I mean, I completely agree with you guys that, because I mean, what I've learned as an HR major is it's never good to compromise to meet at the halfway point.
It's a lose-lose situation.
Yeah, it's a lose-lose
as Michael
situation.
Scott so eloquently put it from the office. Yeah,
exactly. So it's like, obviously you're gonna have to go one way or the other, but I feel like the further route of you, because I think it's easier to restrict your boundaries than it is to, I guess, expand your boundaries.
Oh, that's great. Yeah,
and
that's true.
I mean, I completely agree with you guys. I think, assuming the guy's the one with that's more liberal, he should be able to, you know, be more conservative, I guess, in a sense. And that edifies her and edifies himself.
And this is the thing, is I think a lot of Christian men, again, just don't know that. I honestly say this to a lot of girls, like, I feel really bad in the church because when you have your selection of Christian men aren't that great. Like,
hey, you could say that about. Okay, not to diss on the ladies out there, but the guys can say the same thing about.
I mean,
ladies
diss on themselves all the time.
But I also say that again, like I think it's harder for men to understand that, you know, because. I that's purely from me speaking from my own perspective as a man, right? I do not know how hard it is for women in
because we're not girls.
We're not girls, right? Girls are crazy.
But some girls, but I don't want to mitigate how girls struggle too. Like I'm sure there are some girls out there who struggle with lustful temptations, and like some girls out there might struggle more than guys. Because I know some guys who are just like they really don't struggle with lust, and I'm just like, how is that even possible? And I feel like, you know, like I'm sure there are girls out there who struggle with it more. So
I'm very skeptical about those people who are like, I don't struggle at all. I'm like, do you really, or are you just really good at hiding it?
I mean, like, but we can never know the heart, right? Yeah. So like, we can try to judge it as hard as we can.
Maybe not struggle as often, maybe.
Right, like God ultimately knows it, and it's not for us to like say like, do you really not struggle with us? Just because we struggle with it more, and we want other people to
course,
be in
yeah.
that same boat with us.
I don't project, but I do have my suspicions.
Oh,
yeah, and
yeah.
don't get me wrong, me too, but I just tend to struggle more with this, so I'm just like, you know,
Yeah. I can
I'm
only
probably
really
in this
speak from
different
my
boat.
own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Man.
But yeah, I don't think I still know my boundaries yet, but I think I have a pretty good idea, after talking with you guys and listening.
Yeah, and I think even kind of like as we segue to a close, like just even talking about it, I'm reminded of how much failure I've had in the past with my past relationship and how, because it's so easy to just say it versus doing it, and I really struggle with that because I have I know it and I always feel like I should do this, but like the spirit is willing but the flesh is so weak, and my flesh is super weak, so it's a lot of times. No, seriously, it's like anyway, I don't want to. Yeah, so like I think for me, even just talking about this was a good reminder of how much of the standard that I failed to live up to in my own standard. So I think it was a good reminder that I need to apply these things instead of just because I feel like it's worse knowing it and not doing it versus being ignorant about it and then making those mistakes like, oh, I wish I knew that before, but now I can't do that because it's like I knew I shouldn't be doing this thing if I do it, it's worse. So it was a good reminder and a humbling podcast today.
Yeah.
I think we did a really good job considering how much we did not prepare for this.
Hey man, don't tell them that, guys. Me and Dewey talked about this week that we're gonna talk about boundaries. Do you remember I texted you?
Oh yeah, when we talked about that one time last week.
Phil Sims apparently. No, I'm just kidding. No, we didn't prepare, but because we let it come from the heart. Not really, but
we were really close talking about other subjects like the comfortable stage, honeymoon stage.
Right, but that can be future. We don't have to rush. I always say, you can't rush greatness.
That's true.
Greatness.
Hey, you can't rush greatness.
Our 150 views per pod of greatness.
Solid.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right, guys. Yeah, good talk. Thanks, John, for opening up his apartment for us to come in and talk about.
We'll miss you for the next 2 weeks.
Oh, right.
I will not be here for the next 2 weeks.
So we'll be doing some ghetto podcasts for you guys out there. So
yes, it's gonna be way worse than this quality.
This is the last dating one, right?
Possibly. I was thinking about maybe doing one more.
I think we need to move on, man. I think that people want something else.
Yeah.
Unless they really want to hear other things, then they should leave comments.
True. I just
They
feel like
should
4
be
episodes is not
questions or
enough.
whatever.
4
yeah,
episodes just
I
seems
feel
so
like
short.
at least 6, 8.
I'm just
Maybe.
saying, it's
I
getting
wanna do
harder and
more.
harder to think of like.
Wait, actually, I want to do more because this is my second one that I've been on. So
I was thinking like 5 or 6.
yeah, I mean that's fine.
Like per series.
Right.
Don't worry, it'll be over by the time you come back, John. Don't worry.
Alright,
It'll be
alright.
over for sure.
Well, like this is probably coming out next week, right? So I'll only be missing 1 week, really.
Sure. This is technically coming out next week.
Yeah.
Well, it's fine.
All right, sorry for wasting your time in the last like 5 minutes of the pod.
Yeah. Well, this was the Josh and Dewey podcast, the Sunday after. Sponsored by, just kidding, we're not a sponsor yet. But if you guys know any sponsors, we'll do anything for money.
And remember to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. All right, until next time. Later, guys.